Today, see how to literally set it and forget it with your next automated software deployment using deployment automation for Tanium Deploy. Welcome back to Tanium Tech Talks. I'm your host, Ashley McGlone. All right, today, true story. Shortly after I started working here 7 years ago, I was doing a demo for a potential new customer, and at the end, as always, I asked for questions, and someone actually asked me this question. Hey, I'm looking for a tool that will tell me what breaks before I push out my patches. I just thought, is this person in reality? Like, nobody can tell you what's going to break before you push it out. And so I just said, hey, nobody can do that until now. So many times I catch myself on my show just thinking, when I first saw Tanium, I thought this is like science fiction, right? And it starts to become reality. So do you ever worry that before you push out that application update to the masses of your users, do you worry that's going to be okay? Well, you've got to see today's demo. We've got a familiar face on the show again. Help me welcome back Jason Wasser. He did some really popular videos on patch and deploy last year, and you can find all those in our playlist here on the YouTube channel. And I'm going to link some of those in the show notes below as well for you. But Jason, welcome back to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Ashley, for having me back. My name is Jason Wasser. I'm a technical account manager with Tanium. I'm based in Central Florida, and my focus is in helping our customers with their operations use cases, and with always trying to help them automate more and get more of their life back.
Well, Jason, it's good to see you again. And as we announced some big features of Autonomous Endpoint Management, AEM, at Converge this last year, and now you and I are getting to watch these become reality. So what are you going to show us today?
Yeah, today we want to talk about deployment automation. It's basically the next level of automating third-party patching. So like in a previous episode, we talked about automating web browser patching, and we showed you how you could do that with deploy and maybe sending out the most recent version of Chrome. But blasting out the latest version of Chrome to all your endpoints may not always be the right choice, right? Because if something breaks, you could have a crowd of users wanting to strike you for it. So wouldn't it be better if you could deploy updated browsers in phases to your endpoints? Or even better than that, what if you could know ahead of time how the new versions may impact your endpoints?
This is AEM, Autonomous Endpoint Management. On the show, like you mentioned, we've talked about some of these things in the past. So which ingredients are we bringing together to make this solution today?
Yeah, there's two main components of AEM that we'll be bringing together for this deployment automation. And the first of that is the deployment plans. The deployment plans are ways of throughout the platform of doing actions in phases or rings. And the other side of that is going to be confidence scores. And we'll dig into both of those here shortly.
Well, I'm eager to see it, and I know our viewers are too. Let's get into a demo, and we can maybe explain as we go. I'd love to see what you've got for us.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is talk about those components that make up deployment automation. So I'm going to click on the administration menu here, and you'll see two new items under the actions menu. The first one is the ring deployment status, which gives us that oversight. So we want to keep the human in the loop of knowing what's going on when you're doing deployment automations. And then the deployment plans is where you define those deployment plans. So I'm going to take a peek at those. Now, we give you three managed plans by default with the platform, but you can also make your own plans based on dynamic percentages of endpoints or defining them by your own filter groups. What I'm going to do is just take a look at the standard plan. I'm going to expand it just so we can talk about how it works just as a review, right? We have another Tech Talk video that goes deeper into these adaptive actions and deployment plans. Definitely recommend that to you all. So this standard plan is a 4-phase plan. It's got a canary ring. So let's say I want to take an action, right? I want to make a registry change across my endpoints. It's going to mitigate a vulnerability. And in the past, you had to do separate actions targeting different groups of endpoints so you could do it in phases. Now you can use a deployment plan and say, I want to do 1% of my endpoints, And I'm going to let it stew for 12 hours, right? Make sure everything's good. And at the end of that time, we're going to evaluate the success rate. And if we reach 90%, we're okay to proceed and automatically to the next ring. So now we're going to expand to 15% of endpoints, wait a day, evaluate the success rate again, so on and so forth, 40%, and then eventually all computers. So we're going to be able to gradually and safely apply changes across your environment.
All right, so I know we did that show before, but I just want to ask for viewers who may not have seen that. Um, how do I know? Like I push this out, and then what's the status in those rings? How do I know if is it successful, or if there's where do I see the red alert that says, "Hey, this is not working"?
Yes, very good. So that's this ring deployment status page. So this is going to cover all the different activities, actions that are using ring deployments. So that's going to be deploy, which we'll be talking about today, but it can also be any other core actions that you might be taking throughout the platform and of course, future expansions. So here I can see different, the active and most recent deployments that have been going on. I can also click into them and get more status as far as which ring it's in, its success rate, etc. So it's completed the canary ring, and it's moved on to the early adopter ring. And again, we're still in control. The machines have not taken over yet. We can still pause this deployment or stop it if we need to. And I think the next thing we want to do is talk about the other side of that, right? Which is confidence scores, right? So confidence scores. Well, I'm going to head over to deploy. I'm going to click on deploy and then software. And I'm going to look at the predefined package gallery. The predefined package gallery is a list of third-party packages that we maintain that you can use to update your endpoints, and of course with automation, right? But we've added this new column here called confidence score. And you can see here there's data here for different packages. I'm going to go ahead and focus on Chrome 64-bit here just so we can see that data. And if I mouse over this, I can see that across the millions of managed endpoints in Tanium Cloud, 154,000 endpoints have already installed this package. So our confidence score is this intelligent data that this telemetry that we're getting from managed endpoints so that we can see how confident are we that this package would be successful deploying in your environment, right?
Hey, I
So
want to ask a question from, I had this from a customer recently. If you could take off your Chrome filter, this is beautiful data. If you take off that filter for Chrome in
yeah,
the list, because after we put the show out, some people came back and said, "Hey, it says calculating here." Could you speak to that? Because I know the confidence scores are really it's not something that I create. It's got to be in the package gallery, which covers a lot of real estate. But when you start looking at some of these calculating, it turns out there may be less popular, more in the weeds, specific releases. Maybe could you speak to like where we see that calculating and why that might take longer for some apps?
So when we talk about the confidence scores, right, there are different levels of confidence scores, such as if we look here, there's high, medium, low, and there's calculating. So calculating was basically saying we don't have enough minimum data yet to give you a valued score. And we have this in our documentation. If you want to look at the math and the statistics of how we're doing this to arrive at this data, you can certainly do that. But we're just saying like we don't have enough data yet. The package may have just come out yesterday, right? And so we don't have that information. But we could look at one that's low, right? So if we take a peek at this Zoom government installation, it's only 25% successful, right? And that might mean I don't really want to deploy this update. Maybe I'll wait for the next version, right? But the sample size is also smaller, but that's still 10,000 endpoints.
Yeah, this is really just like I opened up with, right? Somebody says, "Hey, show me what's going to fail before I push it out." Now we talk about Tanium being about confidence. This is really it's confidence score. It's in the name. Yeah, thank you.
It's in the name. Yeah. So if I want to go back to talk about a little bit more about the confidence score, at least with Chrome, right? So we have this large sample size. We've got great success of installation, right? I would say that that's good. Let's proceed. But there's more than just did the app install, right? We all know that sometimes a new app version comes out and it's not good. It's not good after the fact, right? And that's where this performance degradation data comes in. We're actually tracking the related Chrome executables to say, hey, has there been an increase in application crashes? Or have there been CPU spikes related to Chrome or an average increase of memory and CPU usage since this new version of Chrome has been deployed, right? And armed with this intelligent data, you can then make the right decision about moving forward with your deployment of this new version of Chrome. I think that's going to help customers a lot.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like auto insurance apps now are the kind of a trend where, okay, if you want to get a discount on your auto insurance, you got to get telemetry from your smartphone going back to the insurance. Like, hey, is this person making fast starts and lots of hard braking? That kind of telemetry, right? So we could
Right.
see where there's some hard braking going on with some of these packages. This is amazing.
Yeah, so we've talked about deployment plans. Now we've talked about confidence scores, and you might be seeing where this is going to. And that's why I wanted to kind of build up to what these components are to how we can use these and leverage these in the platform. So I'm going to expand the deploy submenu, and now you'll see this new section called deployment automation. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to start us off in this activity page where it gives us an overview of our deployment automation. How many deployments have been going out in the last couple of days? How many of those are automatic? How many of those we've chosen to override? And we'll get into all that. Also, how many deployments have been automatically deployed versus manual deployments. And then, of course, we can also have some oversight into the, the deployments that are actively being deployed through automation. Well, I'm going to come back to this page so we can talk about what to do, but I want to first talk about how do you create an automatic deployment configuration, right? So I'm going to click this large button here. We're going to go into this new page here. And this is where I can say, I take that same scenario where we want to update browsers, right? So I'm going to call this browser updates. We have a lot of the same type of components that we would for a normal deployment. We have content sets for role-based access control. We also have deployment templates, so we can assign predefine a lot of the deployment template style that we want to use. Then we have our target. So let's say we want to keep our browser updates on all workstations. Okay, so I've selected my target. My next option then, I need to choose a deployment plan. So we talked about that standard phase deployment plan earlier. So I'm going to select that plan. Of course, we've got the same options here where it's going to then slowly deploy what we choose over the next couple of days. And then you can always override any of your deployment template options here should you need to. But this is the key here. This creating a software rule. These are the triggers in which when will this automatic deployment be created? So if I'm going to focus on Chrome, I'm going to search for Chrome, and I'm going to select all of them. I want all the Chrome, and of course I could select Edge and Firefox, the browsers, and I just want to update browsers, right? I don't necessarily want to install, but that's definitely still an option, install or update. I'm going
Yeah,
to
I
click
just
create.
want to call out. I remember when we did the previous episode. I'll put this link in the show notes, but we talked about the brilliance of this package, where you can put all your browser updates, and it's not going to install it if it's not there. It's just going to update it if it's there, and that's just beautiful, man. That is beautiful.
Right,
You can use
exactly.
whatever browser you want. We're just going to make sure it's up to date.
Yeah. So when I click create rule, it's going to create this new software rules, and then we're going to talk about these triggers. Now, you can have one uh, rule trigger per package. You can have multiple packages per trigger. All that's going to be dependent upon what works best for you. Do you want to lump a bunch of browsers together and have them all follow the same rule triggers? Or do you want to maybe deploy Chrome and Edge and Firefox at different rates? What are those options? So first of all, I'm going to just select the second option because this is the normal, what we're used to, where we could just say, look, the latest version comes out, let's push it out, automatically send it out. But when we're sending it out, we're still using that deployment plan. So this is even an improvement. Say a new version of Chrome comes out, let's slow roll it out to the environment. But what's even better is if we could use that confidence score to help us avoid any negative impact to our endpoints, right? So this is saying when a new version of Chrome comes out, it needs to have a confidence score of moderate or higher, and it has to be at least 2 days old, right? So maybe I don't necessarily want to rush into the latest version of Chrome or Edge or Firefox or other third-party gallery package. I want to let it bake a day, right? Let's see. Let's see how that goes. But you could also be more aggressive and say, look, if it's been a day, let's go ahead and do that. But let's say it's still calculating and we need to make sure that, well, we do need to at least let this go after maybe 4 days, right? So this is where you're in control. You can design the automation with the safety and the risk that you want to accept. And then so we can specify that these are the rules that we want to have. And when we do that, it gives us a preview of what versions of Chrome would be then automatically included in this rule, because they have that high confidence score.
Let's talk about versions for a second. I know a lot of shops do like an N-1, N-2. But if what I'm reading here, if I'm just putting this together, I don't want to say version 132 or 131 because then I'd be hard coding that and it would kind of defeat the automation, it seems like. But this giving it a number of days seems like, well, it might not be N-1 or N-2. It still gives us a little buffer room there.
Correct. So this rule trigger helps us maybe not deploy that package right away in our environment. And then the deployment plan helps us also to keep that delayed, right? So as a new version of Chrome comes out, we'll start off in Canary, right? And then it'll move to early adopters. And then maybe a new version of Chrome will come out. So it will go through, it'll wait a day or two, like you define, and then it'll start to roll through Canary. So while the N-1 version is still rolling out to all computers, it's automatically starting the current version of Chrome back through the rings. So you have to still have that N-1 approach, that delayed approach.
Which that's a good point. Two things there. So first off, it's possible to have multiple versions deploying at the same time, which
That's
is kind
correct.
of a new thought.
Right.
Your early adopters and your late adopters and your critical machines. We talked about in the other episode how you can delay your executives and critical workload machines to the end. So that's possible. But the next thing I wanted to ask is, so once I set this up, we're used to this mindset of, all right, I've got to push out my deployment this week for the latest Chrome thing, and then next week I do that again, and the next week I do that again. But is this I talked about in the episode opening? Is this a set it forget it? Is this the last time I'll ever push Chrome and it just automatically flows, or do I have to hit a button every week or something?
Well, you'll still be in control, but you're right. That you'll get to a set it and forget it. But if you need to step in, you can also do that if you need to pause or advance. And then we'll actually cover the 0 day scenario as well in a minute, where like I've got these rings and I want to be safe in my normal deployment of Chrome. Those weeks, days, months where you need to, if you really need to accelerate that, we can use a different type of deployment plan to accelerate that deployment even faster.
Wait, are you saying Chrome has 0 days?
Hold on, let me get my surprise face out. Uh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great statement there about that overriding and multiple versions. So when you create that automatic configuration, you get this configuration that you can review. And what this shows with this configuration, there are 5 deployments and 1 pending, right? So I've got 1 active deployment of Chrome, but for Edge for Mac OS, I have 1 active and I have 1 pending. And these could actually also be both going at the same time when they hit their triggers. So you're right, there could be more than one deployment going around the rings. Like a new version of Edge followed by an old version of Edge just going through the rings until it's fully deployed. So now what that looks like here is this version of Edge has already gone through the rings to update Edge for Mac. But this one is pending deployment, right? It has not reached the trigger yet because it's still a score of calculating. It's been 2 days, but since it's still calculating, we're still waiting for that second trigger to come through here to say, okay, once it reaches 7 days, let's just go ahead and automatically get that out there. And this gives us a chance because what if we find out that there's a line of business application for our Mac users where the edge breaks this time? Okay, great. I'll just hit skip this version. right? I can still be in control. I don't have to break all the automation. I'll just say, let's skip this version. Or that same 0-day scenario, like let's go ahead and override and get this version of Edge out to our macOS endpoints right now, right? Let's go ahead and override that trigger.
Man, I'm just thinking of all the customer feedback we've heard over the years on software deployment automation. I mean, this is really what people have been asking for a long time. The ability to control the versioning and automatically deploying the latest. This really checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah, it really does. These automatic deployments are going to follow your targeting, right? What you want to do. It's going to be at your risk threshold, what you think your organization wants to handle and accept, and it's going to do it progressively and safely. So that's why this is that next level of automation. And it really is autonomous endpoint management. Once you configure this, your third-party patching is going to be automatic and safe, and that with you in the loop, right? So we got to keep those human oversight. That's critically important when we talk about this autonomous endpoint management, and all that you can see is here.
So, just to clarify, so we are in the deploy module looking at the deployment automation page. And you said earlier that there's the broader platform action review as well, overview. So, are those pages kind of the same? And deploy just gives you the ability to interact with it, like skip or do it now kind of thing?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, right? So we talked about this deployment automation activity page, which does have that action oversight for the deployment automation. I know that's a mouthful, but for just specifically those automations using deployment plans that are deploy packages. But we can head back over to our Ring deployment status page, which again is going to be platform wide, could be core actions, it could be deploy. And we can see that we have this is that edge deployment that's going out now, where we can review that status. And again, stop and pause.
Very nice. So we've got two different ways to kind of look at the same data, but here in the platform actions ring deployment status, we'll see alongside other things that are happening in the environment as well for that big view. Nice.
And I want to switch over to a different environment here and talk about the 0-day scenario. We've talked about these deployment automations, right? And we want to, on a normal day, we want to just automatically deploy Chrome in phases once it has an appropriate confidence score and it's been out for a day or two. But in the 0-day scenario, I may need to push Chrome faster, right? Again, maybe not all at once, but we may want to accelerate that. And so this here is I created a normal deployment. So I went into the normal deployment section and I created a 0-day Chrome deployment. And why this is great is because I don't have to stop or break any of my existing automations. Those can continue. But in this case, I want to speed up or accelerate that 0-day approach. And now I wanted you to see this because I've actually created a separate deployment plan called my 0-day plan. And if you can see here, it's much more aggressive, right? So it's only going to wait 1 hour before moving to the next ring, and then 3 hours before it moves to the next ring, and then move out to all computers. But I wanted to show you that with that confidence score, there's a lot more to deployment plan progression that you can take advantage of. And as you can see here, I've started this deployment of Chrome, but it didn't meet the progression criteria. And so it's paused this deployment. It will not progress to the next phase. And so some of these evaluation criteria, we've already seen the execution success rate. I need 90% of the target to succeed. But we can also say I need a minimum number of endpoints in my environment for that to be evaluated, right? I don't want just 5 endpoints. I now might need 50 endpoints to know that I've got a good sample size before moving to the next ring. But now we can add in those confidence score performance degradation values, where I need to make sure that before I keep going with this Chrome update, that it's not creating memory usage, increased memory usage or CPU usage or lots of application crashes. So this is really taking that safety of that deployment automation to an even higher level. You can ensure that and have confidence that those packages are going out, they're not affecting your endpoints, and they can pause and stop if something goes wrong. But you can also, again, you can go back to that deployment status page, and then you can say, okay, so what happened here? Let me get some more details. And then I can even say, I want to go ahead and override and go ahead and start to the next ring. Keep going with this.
Yeah, well, we talk about autonomous endpoint management, self-driving cars, as the analogy. Do you trust it to take your hands off the wheel? This is us putting our hands on the wheel and saying, okay, we need to do this now. The autonomous stuff is great, but hey, we need to move faster, and so we can do that here. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I think this is going to be a huge win for our customers. I think that they're going to be able to take advantage of this right away and extend and level up their automation, right, with these confidence scores, with these ring-based deployments, all with the human in the loop oversight. You're going to be more effective, keeping your endpoints up to date, while safely maintaining your operational status, your security hygiene across your entire organization. I mean, if you sum it up, right, you're going to decrease risk, increase your compliance, all through safe automation.
Yeah, I think about how we've done things in IT for decades. You and I have been around a long time. And besides that, we don't rip our CDs to MP3s anymore to carry around in a dedicated MP3 device in our pocket. We just stream our music online. And so now, when it comes to IT processes, for years we've been used to these manual processes that require a lot of effort to create the packages and vet them and using some maybe some nefarious ways to figure out, okay, do we even know if it's going to be successful? And then we just push it out and cross our fingers and wait for the help desk to light up. So now we're kind of past that. This is a new way of doing IT with automation that can really help us. And I think that's a big takeaway today, is to understand that this is different, and it's better, and it keeps you in control. Wow.
We need to keep automating, right? We need to keep moving that forward. Uh, and with this, you guys, our customers are going to be very successful with that.
So I'm curious then, we've obviously, this is releasing for cloud first. Our on-prem SAR release is semi-annual update release. We got another show on that. Some folks will get that later on-prem, but when is this available in cloud?
Should be available by the time this video releases.
That's good news. Yeah. Yep. That was a softball. Yep. Yep. It should be there. So our call to action then is just go play with it, right? Start building this out. As I'm watching this, thinking from the mindset of an admin of Tanium, I'm thinking, well, there looks like I've got to get kind of built out my deployment plans. I've got to kind of start to build some of these components, but then I don't have to keep doing that every week. I literally set it and forget it. I can get this stuff scaffolded out across my environment, have those conversations with business stakeholders, where those sensitive areas are that you need to delay to the end, and you can do that. Go watch that other episode on the deployment plan. So there's a lot to kind of get those Lego bricks sub-assembled, so to speak, and then you build your big Voltron, put it all together. But this is really powerful. Anything else you want to leave with our audience as we wrap up?
Well, I like that point, right? Because a senior admin could work on defining those deployment plans in a safe way because they have that experience, maybe the organizational knowledge. By predefining them, then the junior admins can feel more confident because they can use what's already been built, tried and true, and tested when they make changes. So now they feel more confident, the senior admins feel more confident, the business feels more confident because they have these predefined plans, and this is how we make changes across our organization.
Well, Jason, thank you for joining us today. All great points. It really is a new way of doing IT ops from what we've been used to for years now. We have, as always, you've come to expect in the show notes below here on YouTube, there are a ton of links for you today, probably more in this episode than any other, because there's the docs on how to, read it step by step there. There's the release notes and announcements that we have over in the resource center. Also, some of those AEM videos that we talked about, some of these components, you can go back and watch those for more detail on how to really maximize your deployment rings, for example. So that's there. And then also, Jason's done a number of other very popular patch and deploy videos. And I can already tell some of the things that we were talking about even a year or two ago, their best practices are going to be getting updated and becoming even better and faster with some of this new automation. So go check out all those there, and you can also find them in the playlist here on YouTube. So this is exciting, folks. Autonomous endpoint management. It's a new way of doing things. Set it and forget it. So get out there, try it. And then once you've tried some of this, go over to our community. So you go to the help.tanium.com and the resource center up there, and there's the little jump menu. You can go into the community, find those groups there where you can start to talk about patch and deployment and some of the questions that might come up when you do this. And talk to your peers there in there. There's partners, other team employees answering questions, and go share what you found that's worked for you, and answer others' questions there and build that score for your Titans badge. So hope you'll join us over there as well. So that wraps up this episode of Tanium Tech Talks. Until next time, go Tanium.